From the WATE.com Digital Center, answering your legal questions. This is Ask Isaacs. Now, here's Lori Tucker and attorney Greg Isaacs.
Lori Tucker here along with our legal analyst, Greg Isaacs. Thanks for being with us today. It's always good to see you.
Lori, it's good to see you.
What we're talking about today, President Trump thinking about reclassifying marijuana. So here to talk about the potential impacts nationwide and here in Tennessee. Well, that's what we're going to focus on for the next 30 minutes or so. Monday, if you didn't hear about this, Monday the president says his administration is thinking about reducing marijuana from a Schedule 1 drug to a Schedule 3. Let's get everybody up to speed before we delve into this by kind of laying the groundwork with this reporter from our D.C. Bureau.
Some people like it, some people hate it.
President Donald Trump says the decision of whether to reclassify marijuana is a complicated one.
I've heard great things having to do with medical, and I've had bad things having to do with just about everything else.
Currently, marijuana is a Schedule 1 drug, listed as having a high potential for abuse and no accepted medical use. The administration is considering making it a Schedule 3 drug, which the Drug Enforcement Administration says has less potential for abuse.
There's a lot of pressure for him to do it, so I think he's weighing all of the different considerations.
Kevin Sabet with Smart Approaches to Marijuana opposes the change. He says marijuana isn't harmless and thinks the pressure to reschedule is driven by money, since cannabis companies would get tax breaks under the change.
They stand to gain a lot of money, and that's what this is about. So this isn't about, social justice or research or advocacy.
If marijuana were rescheduled, it would still be considered a controlled substance and not legal recreationally nationwide. Groups that support the change say it would be a step in the right direction.
Cannabis has legitimate medical utility, and it doesn't possess the same risk profile as drugs like heroin and methamphetamine.
Paul Armentano is with the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, or NORML. He says rescheduling could give the cannabis industry better access to banking and potentially lessen some federal penalties tied to the drug. But ultimately, Armentano says Congress should be making this change.
They're arguably the most proper authority to do so.
In Washington, I'm Maddie Beertemple.
All right, so there is an overview. Let's go over again the benefits that a reclassification would entail.
Lori, what it would do primarily, it would create a requirement to rehaul the policies and procedures of the Department of Justice, also the federal sentencing guidelines, because when you compute drug equivalence in terms of finding sentences that are typically based on quantities and weights and drug conspiracies, marijuana is the Rosetta Stone. You extrapolate other drugs in terms of how many kilos that would be of marijuana, et cetera. So they would have to kind of retool that. The DEA is currently looking at some of those proposed changes as a holdover from the Biden administration. But basically, it would lower marijuana in terms of classification, where it's a Schedule 1 federally, analogous to meth, heroin, cocaine, crack cocaine. But it would put it down to a Level 3, which is a far less onerous classification for criminal penalties, and it's analogous to ketamine, which you see clinics dispensing ketamine routinely if they have a permit. Also
anabolic steroids,
testosterone,
even Tylenol with codeine.
Tylenol with codeine. So it would really ramp it down, which would in turn ramp up the federal mandates for prosecution of marijuana.
Very interesting. Let's talk more about what we just learned in that story, that one of the biggest benefits of reclassification would be that cannabis firms would no longer be subject to a section of the U.S. federal tax code.
What this does, it gives incentives and allows people that are involved in growing, wholesaling marijuana products to have some degree of legitimacy and have a federal tax write-off. One thing the president's also looking at is encouraging states to develop a uniform marijuana policy, because right
this
now,
doesn't mean that this transfers to Tennessee. This is the federal level.
Absolutely
We're
not.
very different.
So here's the problem. For those of you that want to go back to American history 101. We have
Take
50,
us there.
50 we have 50 states unless something happens to Canada before we close the business. Right now, 24 states have legalized marijuana. 40 states have medical marijuana. So what I see is people get on planes, trains, cars. They bounce from Michigan. They bounce from Colorado. They come here, and when they get pulled over, Mr. Isaacs, it's perfectly legal in Colorado. Well, did you see the sign that said, "Welcome to the great state of Tennessee"? Yeah. We don't allow that around here. But, Michigan allows marijuana. So you are seeing a tremendous problem when you cross a state line, that conduct that is legal then becomes illegal. So that's something I think the federal government and the Biden administration tried to do it.
They never got around to it. They talked about it.
Just because there's a lot of work, heavy lifting.
It's complicated, obviously.
But here's what everybody needs to know. Don't think because you're leaving a state that sells legal marijuana and you cross a state line that doesn't, you do not get an exception, you do not get an exemption, and you do not get a lot of sympathy here in the state of Tennessee.
Do your homework.
But now, there's also things that are changing as this whole movement evolves. For example, in Davidson County, the district attorney's office, Glenn Funk, said, we are not prosecuting simple possession marijuana cases. In the Biden proposal, which is still kind of sort of on the table, they were going to issue executive pardons to everyone that was convicted of simple possession of marijuana federally.
Talk about complicated.
Yep.
Once again,
And
going back how far?
ad infinitum. So also asking governors to do the same. So what you're seeing is a push to have some form of uniformity. But as we're seeing this push, we're also seeing a backlash. And we kind of see that here in Tennessee with some new legislation governing HDCP, hemp-derived cannabis products.
Which is separate, I want to point out, from what the president is talking about in reclassification.
Right. So, this is incredibly significant here in Tennessee because we have had a proliferation of stores that sell CBD, whether it's a health shop, standalone, they're affectionately called in criminal court gas station drugs. But what the manufacturers have found this loophole, and right now, as we speak, you could go to a health food store and get products that are 40% half and half. Like if it's a 40 milligram cookie or ring, it would be 20 milligrams of CBD and 20 milligrams of THC. So what they've done is find a way to legally sell marijuana, and they're selling them in packets of 500 milligrams or more.
So if this legislation goes through, this would have a huge impact on their
a dramatic
business.
change, because instead of being overseen by the Department of Agriculture, sales of HDCPs will be taken over by the Alcohol, Tobacco and Drug Commission, ABC. You can't sell it if you serve people that are under 21. It has to be behind a counter under a lock. You have to have a different level of permit. But here's why it's going to virtually suspend, in my opinion, hemp-derived cannabis products. So you would only be able to sell products with a threshold level of 0.03. Everything above 0.0, and that's hemp, everything above that would be classified as marijuana. So that's an incredibly low threshold, and the aggregate amount of the THC could not exceed 15 milligrams. So all that business, if it is enforced, I think will atrophy and wither on the vine very, very quickly.
So to speak. All right, so obviously these stores are watching this very carefully. We will keep you updated on that. And again, this is a legislative process that is different than what the president is thinking about. Let's go back to that and the possibility of reclassifying marijuana and what that would mean to the state of Tennessee. We have a reporter in Nashville who filed this story.
It's currently in the same category as heroin and LSD. Now, the Trump administration could reclassify marijuana to a less serious drug.
We're looking at reclassification, and we'll make a determination over the next, I would say, over the next few weeks. and that determination hopefully will be the right one.
Right now, marijuana is a Schedule I drug, the category of drugs with the highest potential for abuse. Some Tennessee Republicans have said in the past, if the feds downgraded marijuana to a less serious schedule, they'd consider legalizing it for medical use.
Supposedly President Biden was going to move it off of a Schedule I, right, to move it down where states could then start regulating and doing it and do it legally. If it's for medical purposes and it looks like medical purposes and it's used for medical diagnosis, not these very broad medical diagnosis, I think we can get there for medical, but not recreational.
The National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, or NORML, says the reclassification process could take decades, and it would be more symbolic than anything else.
Moving marijuana from one category of the Federal Controlled Substances Act to a lower category of the CSA does not legalize marijuana nationwide. It simply sets a new set of federal regulations and criteria governing how the federal government recognizes that substance.
Meaning it would still be up to Tennessee lawmakers to make it legal in the volunteer state. And after previous attempts from legislators, even from some Republicans, to do just that have failed, some aren't holding their breath.
I think that the federal government changing its position and publicly acknowledging that it's changed its position on this issue could perhaps encourage some lawmakers to, or embolden some state lawmakers. But the reality is the hard work will still remain on the state level. And I don't know if Tennessee lawmakers are up to it because they certainly have shown no appetite for doing so in the past.
Reporting in Nashville, I'm Tori Gessner.
That is so true, and we want to encourage those of you watching to share your comments and or questions. And I'm looking up at our monitor here. We've heard from Felix. Felix, thank you so much for writing in. And here's a question that a lot of people ask. For millennia, this plant has helped many. Why is it so vilified?
It's so vilified because it's become so politicized. And I think therein lies the problem. And, you know, I've had federal judges, and I quibble in cases when you try to mitigate marijuana or you try to separate it from other scheduled drugs. They talk about studies that show it's a gateway drug, et cetera. But for every study that shows it is, there's studies that show it's not, and it's safe. The 24 states that have legalized marijuana, there has not been a tremendous increase in fatalities due to impaired driving. And there's not, I don't think, the demand that they thought they would see when you drive by a dispensary. People aren't lined up
No.
like you would think everyone thought there would be. So
It's interesting.
It's very interesting, but I think it's more of a political debate than a medical debate. And until that pendulum swings, you're going to see it. But it's really kind of exploding. That's why we saw the emergence of these HDCBP products in Tennessee, where they snuck in the THC and married it to CBD, and the legislature found out, people like Cameron Sexton, and said, oh, wait a minute, we got to do it.
What are we doing here?
But there wasn't a problem to fix other than they found out, you know, it was becoming available to John Q. Public. But when you get these debates, what I find is it erroneously gives young people a false expectation. And they'll say it's just marijuana.
It's natural.
It's going to be legalized,
Right.
and it is legalized in other states.
Not in Tennessee. Okay, what about the fact that the president is talking about reclassifying this? Is this a move toward legalization?
Well,
But that would be a state-by-state thing.
There's not that many people, unless you're wheeling and dealing big quantities in federal marijuana drug conspiracies. Now, in Tennessee, this isn't going to change a thing because it is under our state system. Marijuana is classified as a Schedule 6 drug.
Right.
But if you possess over approximately 14 grams, up to 10 pounds, it's an E felony that carries 1 to 2 years. Then the
6
more,
is still the second lowest classification here.
right, we have 7. So the more the weight, the higher the degree of felony. And the highest, if you have over 300 pounds of marijuana or 500 plants, regardless of the weight, that is a Class A felony, 15 to 25 years with a $500,000 fine. So
Wow.
and it goes up. If you have between 10 pounds, 70 pounds, you have a Class C felony, 3 to 6 years. So, it is a serious crime that people are being prosecuted for. So that's what I see as the downside of these debates, because there's a false expectation that it's, quote, Mr. Isaacs, just marijuana. And it just doesn't work that way under Tennessee law.
Let's hold that thought. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with you to bring this back up and kind of try to explain it all and see where things stand right now and what may happen next. Stay with us. Welcome back, everyone. We're really glad you're with us today. And please take a moment, weigh in. Felix has been doing that. We appreciate your comments, Felix. It helps us provide a greater perspective on the issues that we're discussing. As we've been talking about, President Trump is thinking about reclassifying marijuana to a less dangerous drug and taking it off the list as being like heroin, LSD, and all those things to more like anabolic steroids, testosterone, ketamine, and that type of level 3. Here's the question, though. When it comes to federal crimes, such as drug trafficking or simple possession, if this reclassification were to pass, that wouldn't really change, would it, in a very big way? It's still illegal.
It would not, but the way what it would change is the federal sentencing guidelines would be rewritten to address, I think, again, now marijuana is the gold standard when you're trying to calculate a guideline sentence and amounts. So you're like, you got to extrapolate. Meth means these many kilos of marijuana, whatever. I think it would make it a less severe federal crime. But on the other hand, it's your intent. Even though the amount you possess can increase a potential sentence, it's your intent, whether you're in a conspiracy, et cetera. So I think what it will do is a tremendous job is helping the national debate, because much like our country politically, we are in a gridlock. 24 states have legalized marijuana, 26 have not, 40 have approved medical marijuana. So when you bump marijuana down and you don't federally make it analogous to meth, heroin, and cocaine, but you bump it down to codeine, which is found in Tylenol at times, anabolic steroids, testosterone, it, I think, will be a different mandate from the Department of Justice regarding prosecution.
One of the questions we're getting is, okay, why is, on a federal level, the president talking about reclassifying when it doesn't really change things on the state level? Shouldn't it all be one size fits all, one law for this?
In the heart of this debate, that there is a push for uniformity of a national marijuana policy, but then again, you got separate sovereigns. You got the federal government, the state governments, and part of what the Republicans in control, they're big at laissez-faire state rights, and so they're leaving it up to the states. But these changes from the top down, I think, make it easier for different legislatures to justify the marijuana debate. So here's the problem. Again, you can quote study after study to say whether marijuana is a health risk or a health benefit. You can talk about whether it's a gateway drug or not.
As we said earlier, different studies say different things.
Different studies say different things. But the real issue regarding criminalizing marijuana is the politics of the drug.
Correct.
And until that pendulum swings, I think we're going to be stuck where we are. But just remember, don't become the fallacy that you got your marijuana in a legal state. Once you go to a state that it is not illegal, it is a crime, period. Do not pass go.
Travelers beware.
Do not take your gummies across state lines.
Yeah.
I don't know how many college kids, I've had people actually call me from the airport. What should I do? I've got this, kind of coming back from where? And I'm like, well, one, I can't advise you on how to traffic gummies from Colorado. But at the same point, just know it is serious, and the TSA makes it serious. So I think we get lulled into a sense of quote, it's just marijuana.
Well, because it's legal in some places, it's not others. So the rules have been relaxed in so many places.
have,
and
but-
people say, oh, it's natural.
But, simple possession is defined typically, your intent is to possess it for your own personal use or casual exchange under 14 grams. But if you have the intent to manufacture, deliver, or sell marijuana, it is a crime and a serious crime under Tennessee law. If you took a quantum of solace in your gas station drugs, your CBD stores that we see.
Quantum, explain that legal term.
That's itty bitty.
Itty bitty, okay.
Itty bitty. That's James Bond
civilian
talk
speak.
for itty bitty. That you could stop and get your pseudo marijuana. That's going to be gone. It's going to be changed dramatically. 0.03 grams is the threshold. That is a minute amount. Right now, in the state of Tennessee, you can buy 500 milligrams of CBD 50/50 THC. It's going to stop. Max will be 15 grams of THC total in a package.
What's the impact on stores?
The industry's going to be gone
Wow.
until they find a way to get around this requirement. You'll see, and also the alcohol, the ABC, Alcoholic Beverage Commission is going to run it. They've got their own law enforcement wing. There has to be additional permits, additional training. You have to store the THC products, the hemp-derived cannabis products differently. So you got to card everybody. So what it's really going to be in Tennessee, you're going to have like a dispensary 2.0 that sells very minute amounts of cannabis-derived cannabinoids. And it's just, in my opinion, not going to be worth it for the consumer.
To stay, or the place of
business
business.
owner. So, some states are trending toward making marijuana more accessible and changing. Other states seem to be entrenched, like Tennessee. Recently, there was I believe, a referendum in Florida on legalizing marijuana, and I think it failed. So, it's surprising for all the momentum you think legalizing marijuana has. There's a lot of momentum going the other way. And if you think about it, and no one really talks about this during these debates, if you looked at the map of the 24 states where it's legal and the states that are not, I think it would track the red states, blue states.
I was just going to say the red states are the ones that are really tightening things up.
So back to my original point, it is not only a medical issue, it's a legal issue, and it is, at the end of the day, a political issue.
And we're getting some questions from people who say, why is it such an important political issue?
It's kind of like it is until it's not. Remember when we stopped smoking, I remember how the acrimony, vitriol in those debates, and now you're like commonsensically, why in the world did I have to walk in a courthouse or walk in a restaurant and just be, engulfed in a smoke cloud? There are things that once the societal mores and folkways change, you just look back and say, why? But here's the really argument to me. You can go to a bar, you can go to a liquor store, and you can get drink after drink after drink, and you can get all this other stuff, but yet marijuana, which is, some say, healthier, you can't because it has a stigma. So until we destigmatize marijuana, I think it's going to be a problem. But, think about this. All the people that are in jail right now in states because it's illegal, and right across the state lines, there are people
Enjoying themselves.
Enjoying the same exact conduct, and it's not criminalized. So
what is the most jail time you've seen for an arrest involving?
Oh, I've seen decades. It depends on the quantity.
Trafficking.
And how, if you're trafficking federally and it's in a conspiracy. But typically, when you talk about federal drug conspiracies, they're not just exclusively, now with some exceptions here in Upper East Tennessee.
Where are you going with this?
Well, we have some lush terrain that makes it easy to do the growing trade, the cash crop. But you typically just don't see marijuana. You see other drugs
When we
are-
report on drug busts, we'll say heroin, such and such as, and this certain amount of marijuana were seized.
But I'll tell you,
I see
when
what you're saying
when we
here.
talk about politicizing it, depoliticizing it, and the social mores and folkways changing, I see over and over, and I had a principal tell me we just can't stop it. Young kids bringing vapes to school with THC.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's either the law is going to change or the criminal penalties are going to have to be modified, because I don't think people are going to change or marijuana is going to change.
It
and
hasn't
it's
gone
gonna be-
anywhere in a very long time. If people want it, they're going to find a way to get it.
So they say.
So they say.
So they say.
So they say. We just have a couple of minutes left. We've heard a lot of great comments from Felix, who's been talking about the stigma, thanks to movies like Reefer Madness and things like that have become part of our social outlook on this. And then you have, as we said, the political fight. But a lot of people, not a lot of people, several people have weighed in saying, hey, on the federal level, if the president is thinking about reclassifying that, doesn't that seem to me that if he's lowering how powerful this drug may seem, the danger of this drug, isn't that one more step in the direction of legalizing it?
It is. It's absolutely, and it's a step to allow the federal sentencing guidelines to be changed, which is complex. The Department of Justice's mandates on their prosecution priorities. Then I think it will cause states to retool how they schedule marijuana, and so maybe instead of in Tennessee over 14 grams is a felony that goes up, that you'll see higher cutoff levels, that simple possession has more latitude when you're talking about casual use. So, yeah, I think that helps change the big debate. But if with a stroke of a pen it happened tomorrow, would it change the law in Tennessee? No.
No. Very interesting. All right, that about does it. We just have a few seconds left. Thank you so much for being with us. Everyone, we're here every Wednesday at 2:30 on the dot. And we usually like to keep this live stream going for 30 minutes. We appreciate your comments. Felix, thank you for weighing in with us today. Lots of thought-provoking comments there. And we're going to talk more about this coming up at 5:30.
Let's do.
All right. Thanks for being with us.